With gave up last week defensively on the ground, does that inspire you guys to emphasize your rushing attack more, or remain, you do what you do and they do what they do?
Well, most of it with big plays. If I watched a game, when you give up 2 runs for over 70 yards a pop, that number gets skewed in a hurry. Anytime you have those long runs in there, now they all count as part of the average.
Sure.
But they gave up, the same guy had another big run. So it wasn't just 2 big runs, but there were 2 for over 70 yards. So, I think you have to look at the whole body of evidence. You can look at the fact that I'm sure they felt bad that they gave up big plays, but they also made a whole bunch of plays too. So I don't think you can just count on the fact, well, yeah, we're going to get Tony in the open field like that. Hey, sign me up if you can promise me that that's what's going to end up happening. But I think that, we're going to have to make sure we, play physical up front to be able to get to that to happen.
Coach, on the 3 blocked extra points, did UCLA not make an adjustment when they needed to, or was it just the guy was just beating his man?
Honestly, I think the balls were all kicked low, personally. Now the kid made the play in all 3 cases, but I watched both the regular copy and I went back to watch the TV copy because they only played 1 game this year. So I wanted to, pick up anything I could pick up. So I didn't think that just watching the regular tape was enough. And, as you go back and watch the TV copy, you can clearly see that, the announcers are saying, hey, there's some pressure here. There's some pressure here in the protection, but the kicker's got to get the ball in the air. But sometimes, the protection gets all the blame. Sometimes the kicker's responsibility to get that ball up some. But he was getting some pressure on all 3 of them, and deservedly got the deflection on all of them.
When you come in on Sundays and break down film, do you have a grading system you use? Do you guys get letter grades or number grades or anything like that?
Well, it's basically plus or minuses that averages up to a percentage grade. And you get 1 in the run game, and you get 1 in the pass game, and you get 1 collectively, to see what your efficiency in the game was individually.
Anybody have an exceptional grade?
Probably not. We grade relatively difficult. We grade hard. Especially, I'll grade harder than a lot of the position coaches. So every once in a while, I'll look at somebody's grade and I'll say, man, I wish I would have had you when I was in class. I think it's easy. It's easier, when you sit down there. When you have the clicker in your hand, it's easy to nitpick because you could see every little thing. When you just have to tell with the naked eye, sometimes you don't see everything. You don't see all the detail, especially the lack for attention to detail. Without the clicker in your hand, sometimes you can't see that.
What did you see from Taylor Cox in the film that you either liked or didn't like?
Well, coming in, I knew that Taylor had a little shiftiness and had some shake and bake. And I also knew that, coming in, that he could run with power. But seeing him do those both in the same game, I think, was really encouraging. And probably the best thing for Taylor was after he fumbled, okay, you look at somebody's face. Remember we talked about the other day about looking into their eyes, and he couldn't get out there fast enough. Here's one of the guys who wasn't in the tank. He just wanted to get out there and kind of make up for that right there. So I think that as a teaching moment, that's actually a good thing for him. I'll never say a fumble is a good thing, but as a teaching moment, it's actually a good thing.
We all saw the statistics, but how did Dane actually grade out once you went back to watch him?
Well, no one gets graded harder than the quarterback. So I think that he would not, his parents would not have been happy if he brought that grade home.
Sticking with Taylor for a quick sec, you mentioned establishing toughness in the running game. Did you think him coming in, he was the kind of guy that could do that he was going to run hard? Could you see that from what you saw him last year?
I don't think you bring in a junior college player if you don't think they can play now. I think if you bring in a junior college player, junior college player that's been seasoned for a couple of years, they're not coming to you to sit on the bench. That the reason why they're picking Kansas in your program is because they have a good feel that you'll utilize what they do, what they've shown for the last couple of years. And in his case, the kid wasn't picked All-American in junior college for no reason. And I'm not being sarcastic, he was good. Just that not very many people saw him. I said it in jest last week. But California, I'm telling you what, I don't even know if you go on navigation, see if you can find it. I mean, it's a tough place to find, but I'm telling you what, he was a really good player, last year in junior college, and we thought that he could definitely help us. And we're really happy that he's with us.
Any concern when you were recruiting him that where he was playing and that the competition that maybe wouldn't translate to this level?
Tape doesn't lie. When you study tape, it doesn't lie. I mean, what a good player is supposed to do against players that aren't as good, they're supposed to dominate. So all they can do is dominate, and that's what he did. Okay, so if he's playing against average guys or playing against good guys, it really isn't the point. It's the point is what does he do when he's playing? And there's other guys that are on this team that were high school kids last year that people didn't think were real good either, but you watch on the tape and say, I don't know what they're looking at. I'm looking at something different than what they're looking at.
Speaking of some of those younger guys like Trey and Skylar, they got a little bit of playing time. How did they look to?
I think that it was good for both of them to get their feet wet. They were two of the guys, and there's more of them that we want to get into the mix more this week. But I think that anytime they get 10 or 20 plays in there, first rattle out of the box, we're on our way to getting the butterflies out. Now the next time out it won't be as big a deal. And I think the more players you can get that with, the better off you're going to be. Because in the long run, there's some of these guys that we're going to need. They're going to need to play for us sometime this year. Just don't know when that's going to be.
Coach, one of the things you hear all the time about football is teams usually make their biggest improvement between the first game and the second game. Do you agree with that?
I think that, well, first of all, if you had 2 weeks in between the first game and the second game, I think that, sometimes people play a game, then they have a bye, then they play another game. I think that gives you even better chance for that to happen. But I think that once you get the first game out of the way, I mean, there's so many things that you can fix once there's evidence of it on tape. Remember now, we're a brand new team. Brand new staff, chemistry, you're blending together, kids who are here, kids who weren't here, but it's all new. And I think that the more these guys get to start to play against an opponent together, I think that the improvement should be significant. But I'm expecting with many players in many positions for them to play a lot better this week than they played last week.
And so the converse would be true of the opponent, Rice. I mean, you would expect.
I would think that they would play a lot better than they played last week as well. I mean, for example, the first thing you do is say what were the biggest problems we have. Even when you win a game, there's plenty of problems, a ton of them. So coaches aren't naive to think that everything is beautiful just because you won a game. So what you do is you identify those problems and you get to work on those, ASAP. And you can't wait till Monday to get to work on it. You got to start working on them Sunday. I mean, you need to watch it, say, okay, here's what the problems are, and start addressing them right then. Because if you wait till Tuesday and just go like everything is beautiful, before you know it, the next opponent's on you, you didn't get any better.
Do you think guys are generally more receptive to that, to coaching improvement after a win and a loss?
Oh, it's not even close. It's not even comparable. I mean, I said the other day, I mean, it's coaching utopia. When you win a game and there's a lot of problems, okay, you watch the tape and you can't wait for them to come in because they're feeling really good and they got to, eat with their parents and all their friends and everyone's saying good game and you come in and then you tell them how bad they stink and you trust me, you knock them back off their pedestal very, very quickly.
I'm sure a lot of that too is how they respond How did your guys respond to that?
I think that they were expecting it. They were expecting us to come in. And for one thing I do, like I take the offense, I make a good play, bad play tape. So I'll take about, after every game, I'll watch about 20 plays, 10 good ones and 10 bad ones. And after a win, I always show the bad ones first. Say, yeah, you think you're good? Well, let's watch this pile of crap. Okay? And then you go through those 10 plays. Now, when you lose, you do just the opposite. You know, everyone's telling you how bad you are. Let's look at these 10 plays for the game. They go, remember this one? Remember this one? Okay, so after a loss, you show them the good plays to bring them back to, okay, it's not as bad as it, as it all seems. But I show them 10 of both because I try to be even keel at all times.
How excited are you to see Ty McKinney on campus?
What's today? We're talking about Rice. What's today's date anyway? It's the 4th. Let's talk about Rice.
You've talked a lot about the toughness that you brought Ragone in to add some of that toughness. Can you just explain that a little more? And maybe you utilized a lot of those tight ends as you said you would. Do they factor in not just Mike but all those guys?
I think that the only guy who's behind is Charles, because he's more of a pass catching tight end, than a slug him out. But I've been very pleased with Jameis, with Trent, and with Mike, and I think they've kind of followed Mike's lead, where they expect now at the tight end position not to get knocked off the ball on the edge, and I think that's where it all starts, at the tight end position. If a tight end can't block a defensive end, especially most of these teams play 4-man fronts, if they're going to get manhandled by defensive ends, you're going to have a long day. You're going to have a long day at the office. So I think they've all kind of taken to that right there. And Charles is closing ground, but I mean, just something he didn't have to do a whole bunch because he's more detached running down the field all the time, And I think that because Mike knew coming in, hey, listen, when Mike first came out of high school, that wasn't what he was either. He was 225 pounds soaking wet. It was 257. I mean, it's a different. Your body's different, you do different things, you don't run as fast. Instead of being that, 4'4" guy, you might run 4'6", but, at the same time, you couldn't block anyone at that time, and now you can hold up with those players.
Is that the mental makeup of Jameis and Trent too, or did you have to create that with them?
Oh, I think that they've improved more. I thought that, I wasn't really sure what we had in the spring, but coming out of camp, I'm high on both of those guys as far as how much toughness they've demonstrated once we put pads on.
Coach, what do you show Dane after that first game? You got separate tape for the quarterback. You talk about 10 good plays, 10 bad plays. What do you show him?
Well, Dane, he gets the whole kit and caboodle now. I mean, and he gets it in different ways now. First thing he gets is every play in the game. And then he gets it broken down into good plays in a run, good plays in a pass, bad plays in a run, bad plays in a pass. And yes, you can get a minus play on a run and play, even though you're just handing off. Because if you don't carry out your fake, it's a minus. Even though you're just handing it off, it's still a minus. So he gets every play broken down on what ends up happening. Then, after that happens, you wait another day. And then you go to more the big picture things. Don't press. Okay, don't press. Don't try, you're not carrying the world on your shoulders here. Okay, just run the play. Just operate there's plenty of coaching points you can give to quarterbacks, depending on their level of experience.
Did you feel like he was trying to press a little bit in that first game?
No, I just told him not to. Whether he was or not wasn't the point. You have this whole list of things that you think early in the year it's important for them to know. To be perfectly honest with you, I think my biggest concerns going into the game with him, were, is he going to be scared? Because it's been a long time since he played. Is he going to be looking at the rush? In both those questions, he wasn't scared, he wasn't looking at the rush. And if things don't go great, is he gonna be composed? So he hit the trifecta with me. So really, the three most important things that I was looking at going into this year to see how successful he would be those three. And those three, he came through with flying colors. I can correct the other things. I can create better chemistry in the passing game. I mean, it's a combination of him and the skill guys. But I can't do it if he's looking at the rush. I can't do it if he's nervous. I can't do it if he loses his composure. And he passed all those with flying colors.
Knowing him, what have you seen already, and what do you expect his response to that game to be like this week?
I think that he kind of knows what I expect at this point. He knows that, don't be walking around like we lost a football game. You only get 12 of these regular season games, and the first one was a win. And nothing bothers me more when somebody feels bad after you win. You're not supposed to feel bad after you win. You're supposed to feel good after you win. Okay, you deal with the problems in the game, but don't feel bad after a win. And to be honest with you, when I was a younger coach, I was exactly the same. We'd win a game and I'd be miserable because I'd be thinking about the players I coached and the mistakes they made in the game, and I wouldn't even be thinking about the fact that we won a game. I'd be thinking about the bad things. But as I've gotten older and mellowed out and all that other stuff, I've learned to appreciate a win at least for 24 hours, and then get to work on the next one.
At Notre Dame, you
How do you feel like the offensive line did?
How'd the offensive line do? Well, quarterback got hit only a couple times. Got hit on one sack, which should have never happened. He just tried to short set a guy on a deep drop. Okay. He got hit a couple other times, but nothing significant. On the 3rd and 1 on the interception, he shouldn't have gotten a hit. So I wasn't too fired up about that. Ran the ball for a bunch of yards. Okay, gave up one sack. Most games, if the quarterback doesn't get hit very often, and you rush for a whole bunch of yards, it usually means the offensive line played pretty well. The thing about offensive linemen, you don't single out offensive linemen. You don't single out one guy. You don't say, well, Tanner played good, but Zlatnik, he didn't play so well. The offensive line you talk about as a group, it's all 5 of them. It's how does the offense, they want to be treated as a whole. Some guys grade better than others, but that's not the point. It's really at the end of the day, what was the production in the run game, what was the production in the pass game, and what role did they play in that production?
At Notre Dame, you met with defense on Sunday and Monday. Is that something you're still doing, or is
Say that again?
At Notre Dame, you met with the defense on Sunday and Monday. Do you still do that here, or is that changed up?
I met with the defensive staff you're talking about?
Yeah.
I meet with the whole staff on Sunday and Monday. I meet with offense, I meet with defense, and I meet with special teams on both days. But the big difference is on Monday, I'm almost the whole day is dedicated to first and second down game plan for the offense. So I don't spend very much time. Campbell's older than me. He gets mad when I come in his room. So I have to show him a little respect and stay out of his room.
Saw a lot of movement on that right side of the line. Is that something we're going to continue to see, or at some point would you like to see that solidify a little bit? Or
I think that the percentage of numbers might eventually change, but I don't think we're ready right yet, to do that, because the one thing I'm concerned with is making sure we build some inherent depth. And I certainly don't want to take Tanner and Zlatnik off the field, unless I have to. So one of the ways you do that is by playing, more than 5 guys. Now, we would like to get an opportunity to play more than 7 guys. We'd like to play 9 or 10, but that's not the way the game played out.
You talked about the kickoff coverage and just kickoff as a whole being kind of a concern of yours. what are your plans going forward? I mean, was that too much on Ron, or?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think that one of the things I'm gonna do, you know, we have a couple young guys, a couple walk-ons here that have kicked pretty well in camp. Barone has done a better job kicking field goals, and Prolongo's done a better job kicking off. So what we'll do this week on that one facet is give these guys a legitimate look to see if we can't take that part of the kicking game away from him. But I'm going to have to see evidence enough that it's not going to be detraction from what we do. And if we do that, then I'll try to do that.
You indicated you thought the defensive line would be the most...
Excuse me for 1 second, Austin. That's why I know you guys get new depth charts. That's why you'll notice under kicker, I added Prolongo down there. He wasn't down there last week, but the reason why I added him was in answering that same question you just asked.
Great.
Sorry, it just came to mind after I'd answered it.
You indicated you thought the defensive line would be the area maybe of most glaring improvement. Did that bear out in what you saw?
How about you? What did you see?
Better.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think that what I had said all along is that players were coming, and I thought we were going to have more quality depth. You still don't know how good we're going to play, but you'd have to say we definitely have more quality depth. You put those first 4 guys out there, that's what they're supposed to look like. I mean, you look at Josh, and you look at Tabai, and you look at Kiba, and you look at Tobin, you say, okay, that's what they look like. That's what your standard, nickel defense front 4 looks like. And then you start adding those guys behind them right there, and you say, okay, you got a little fast twitch from that 55 guy coming off the edge. Goodman, he showed up better than everyone thought he was going to play. And then you got John Williams, and you got Young, and you got Stowers. I mean, there's 9 guys right there I just named off the top of my head that all played meaningful, significant reps in a game, and I think that's a good thing because it's a long year. And there's a lot of teams in this league with a lot of firepower. A lot of firepower. So you're going to have to keep, especially up front, you're going to have to keep them as fresh as you possibly can.
Coach, when Dane does the Mike IDing, when they go to nickel and dime, does that get tougher?
See, you have to understand what Mike ID is, okay? Some people think well, how tough is it to pick out the Mike linebacker? It's not who plays the position. It's, it could be a safety, it could be the Will linebacker, it could be the Sam linebacker. It's who's coordinated as the middle guy designation by the front that they're aligned in. Everyone thinks that you pick out the middle linebacker and that's it. It's not the way it works. Okay, so it's spots, it's not people. It's spots. Who, based off of this play, is in the spot that would be designated as the Mike? Anyone can go out and say, well, let me say, if number 44 is the starting middle linebacker, then we say 44. And that's not the way it works. It's who's in the spot that would be designated by the front that they're in on this play to be designated as the Mike linebacker. And it affects the running game, it affects protection, it affects hots, and it affects sight adjusts by who that designation is. Sorry to give such an elaborate answer there, John.
You've had a game now. Can you tell us who the special teams captain will be this week?
We'll do that as a staff. We do that after we get through the days right there. We'll go back, but I'm sure if you were asking me right off the top of my head who would be the 2 guys that came to mind as contenders, Jake Love had 3 tackles on special teams. He'd be a contender. Okay, Josh Ford, had a lot of production on special teams. He'd be a contender. But what I do is I vote last. Because I don't want to intimidate the staff into voting a specific way. So I vote last.
Is that going to stay the same way throughout the season, or could it change from week to week?
Be voting last?
No, the special teams captain.
Every week it'll be whoever played the best on special teams the previous week. So whoever it is, that's what it'll be. The only thing we've done is we also do the same thing with scout players. For example, our scout player on offense last was Jake Heaps. I told him he's not getting it anymore. I said, because if you don't go down there and be the best player on the scout team every week, you and I are gonna have a problem. So I told him he only gets it once. He got it the first week, the defensive staff picked him, and then I said, after that, you don't get it anymore. But if it was a defensive player that won it every week, they would get it every week. Like last week, the defensive player was Tyler Holmes. Okay, and he had a great week of practice. And I hope he has another great week of practice this week, but it could be somebody else.